afternoon. A while ago, I showed you how to take a agitator out of a General Electric washing machine, and I promised that if I found out more about it, I'd make another video. So, since I was junking the washing machine, I was just going to throw it away, and what you see there is the agitator basket missing the sides, and my trusty Sawzall and I ripped that apart. And of course this isn't going to do you any good if you got to take it apart and put it back together, but I tried everything I could think of to get down in there with a wrench and take that nut off. What I discovered was, I've come to the conclusion that there's probably a specialized tool to take that off. That nut is really on there, and I finally got mad and used an 18-inch pipe wrench to take that off. The other thing I discovered too, which is probably the most valuable piece of information, is that's not a conventional thread. It doesn't tighten when you turn it clockwise. If you're facing the shaft, normally standard threading is when you turn it clockwise, or righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, if you know the old saying, it tightens that up. That's not true. This is a reverse thread, or a left-hand thread, and so if you don't know that, you're going to be in for a lot of grief. So basically what I did was I propped it up against this post. I stood on this tab. It's still really on there. I assume that it's got some corrosion on it. And there, it's starting to come off. And it's just kind of a, I don't know, feels like it's pot metal or aluminum. Like I said, I believe there's probably a specialized tool for this. And I'm going to guess that that's 2 inches in diameter. Well, it looks like it's about 1 inch, 1 inch 5/8. Yeah, looks like it's about 1 inch and 1/8, or excuse me, 1 inch and 5/8. I didn't measure it exactly. 1 inch and 1/4, 1 inch and 5/8. I suppose the next step is to try and take this bottom piece off, and I don't know how that's going to come off. I don't even see how it's hooked in there. I don't know. Let me stop the camera and see if I can figure out how this is even on there. You don't really want to be bored by me wrestling this thing around the yard. The main thing here is that this, once again, is a reverse thread, and it's a really corroded thread too. The other thing you might do before you try and take this off is, it's pretty greasy, but you may want to soak it with some penetrating oil or something. There's not a lot of room inside that basket. This pipe wrench, if all the sides were here, wouldn't fit in there. It hangs over by about that much, and it was all I could do to get it to come off. Like I said, I put my foot here, put the pipe wrench there, and braced it on the post, and I stood on the thing and literally jumped up and down on it. It's really in there. They must have a big, probably a deep well socket might work. Impact gun, looks like. Yeah, that spindle is about 2 inches deep, so if you've got a really big socket, that might work. I don't know how they work on these in the field. It's not very friendly. So let me pause the camera real quick here and see if I can figure out how this plate comes off. Okay. I'm back. What I did was, I thought for a minute it might be threaded on there like the nut. So I took and threw the pipe wrench across here, across these little ears. Excuse me. And I promptly sheared that ear off. So that's not the way that that's on there. What I should have done was I took the screwdriver and went around the inside of there. I don't know if you can see this or not. That nut has kind of a taper to it to drive that in there. There's a lot. 1,000 years worth of goo in there, and the minute I did that, I took this small 2-pound sledgehammer and started tapping around there, and it came loose. Now, I don't know if that ear is important. I assume it's not there for the fun of it. But like I said, since this is a junk washing machine now, it doesn't make any difference. There's a hell of a mess under here. This is probably why the washing machine repair people get big bucks for this. I don't know what this is. This is the outer basket. I cut this all away. I'm a big fan of old junk screwdrivers. You can get a junk screwdriver. You can get a bunch of junk screwdrivers for $1 at the estate sale or a garage sale, a flea market, and I use them. They tell you not to use screwdrivers as pry bars, which is true. You're probably not supposed to, but it's so darn convenient. So what I do is I go buy junk ones. Once in a while you find some pretty good ones in there, and I use them instead of my good screwdrivers as pry bars. You can get little pry bars. They make them, but they don't make them for 10 screwdrivers for $1. They don't make 10 pry bars for $1. Not yet, anyway. So let's do a little more investigating here. Probably realistically a wire brush would be more appropriate for this. There's some kind of a split here. There's a hell of a mess there. I'm just kind of using the tools I've got here. You probably would use something a little more subtle besides a sledgehammer. This is actually, okay, underneath there, this shaft is squared off. So on the outer part, it's threaded on the corners, and on the inner part, it's squared off, and there's a spline there. That's for the agitator. I don't know what's under there. It looks like there might be a little bushing or a bearing or something under there. The only reason I'm showing this to you is because if I'm lucky enough here in this town, there is a, not too far away actually, under 3 miles, there's a place, a little shop there, he sells appliance parts, and he really knows what he's doing. You go in there with something, and sometimes you even go in there and just ask, hey, I've got, I don't know, washing machine, ice maker, it's doing this. Oh yeah, you got the model so-and-so, and it probably needs this part. I have found that he is yet to be wrong. Because he must really know his stuff. Anyway, the reason let me back up. The reason I'm showing this to you is it might be $60 or $70 for a service call. If you have some mechanical aptitude, or if you're just going to throw the washing machine away anyway, and you're just darn curious about it, you may want to take it apart. If you're going to take it apart to repair it, I would suggest not using these kind of caveman-like tools. There is a lot of buildup of old rust, and I assume that some of this is probably like laundry detergent. This baby is not in any way, shape, or form going to come loose without a fight. There it goes. I don't know if you saw that, it popped. There's some kind of a little washer or a shim or something under there. This thing is actually like a big, sort of like a big spring clip. I don't know if it's made out of pot metal or what it is, but it's slowly working its way off of there. Like I said, the correct thing to do would be to get a wire brush, clean all this crud off of there. And there it goes. There it is. That's aluminum probably, like that washer, or that, excuse me, that nut. So if you take it off there, you might want to be careful with it. And there is another, I don't know what's under here. This thing is a real wreck. There was probably a gasket down in here. I notice there's a lot of corrosion. You wouldn't think there would be that much corrosion in there normally. I assume that this is why the thing went to hell. Well, there's another flange underneath here with, looks like 3 little tabs. It might be another tool, or to take that off, or maybe you just knock that off of there. This would be a big no-no. If you're going to do this, you wouldn't get a hammer and pound on the end of this. I don't know how that's hooked on there right off the bat. That's okay. Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and shut you back off. Like I said, the main thing you want to know here is that this is reverse threaded. So I guess until I do some more investigation here, you're on your own. Have a good day. Okie dokie. Did a little more screwing around here. I took some WD-40 and put around here. Get out the trusty screwdriver and I scraped very carefully around this whole thing. And actually what I did was I went and got this giant gold chisel. And I carefully wedged it. I didn't use it to cut anything, I just wedged it in between there like that, tapped on it, and it cracked that loose. It didn't break it, it actually knocked it loose. Okay, so that's kind of a giant washer. The reason I'm doing this is a couple reasons. I think I told you before is a lot of times folks just can't afford to have a repair person come out. They're $70 or $80. Sometimes people just don't have an extra $70 or $80 to lay out. The other reason is, if you're like me, I like taking things apart, repairing my own pieces of equipment or tools or vehicle or whatever it is. It gives me some pride in what I'm doing. I always learn something new. And what happens too is sometimes I'll have a friend or an acquaintance or a friend of a friend, or you know how it is. They'll not have the money, and you can help them out. And sometimes it doesn't do any good. So that stuff is so sealed it won't help you out. But there would have been plenty of times I'd have liked to have had somebody write this down or make a video of it. I hate to tell you how many things I pretty much destroyed trying to take them apart. I learned something. I learned it the hard way. Okay. At the School of Hard Knocks. So anyway, once again, you wouldn't use these types of tools on this piece of project. So this should just come on. You would think that would just come out. There must be another gasket or something in there preventing it from coming out. This is pretty cleverly put together. Let me stop again, do a little investigation, see what I can find. Okay. This is a bushing, or a seal. It's a lot like a seal on the rear end of a car. On the axle, what I did was I took a screwdriver. You probably want to use a punch, maybe a dowel or something. I don't know. You probably aren't going to be able to reuse that. And I took and I tapped on it a couple places, and it started to rotate. And I thought maybe it was threaded on there. It's just pressed in there. And I don't know if you can see this or not. Inside there is a little tension spring. It's a lot like the seal on the rear end of a car on the axle. So yeah, there's a big mess in there. I assume that would all be normally dry. Let's see if it'll come out now. Nope. It still will come out. I don't know. There's something else in there. Just having a heck of a time. Well, that's okay. Maybe this will save you some trouble. You gotta love the neighbors that leave their animals out all day. I suppose if I was a meaner person, I'd call it Humane Society. But we'll let that go again. It's something to complain about. I don't know what's in there. There feels like there's another bushing in there. I suppose the smart move would have been to take this all apart off camera, put it all back together, and then turn the camera on and take it apart. But like I said in some of my other videos, you do these, if I do these things kind of real time, that is really in there. Then you get to see what happens in the real world. And if I screw up, make a mistake, you get to see it. You get to see how I attempt to fix it or cover it up or have to admit that I made a big mistake. I don't know how that's all over. It really gets tight. It starts to come out and it gets very tight. I don't know if it's got a burr worked up on it or... I suppose if this was still in one big piece, there'd be more to grab onto. Underneath here seems to be another metal. I don't know if you can see it. There's another metal piece under there. Oh, there's a kind of a washer under there. There's another. I don't know what that is. Let's see. Well, I've managed to lose the screwdriver. That's just ducky. I suppose I could back up the videotape and figure it out. There's the flashlight. Cold chisel. Like I said, underneath here is, I don't know if you can see that there's another washer, and there's another Feels like that's metal.
Oh, maybe.
Oh, this is one of those days when you set your teeth down and they disappear, and you don't have false teeth. Well, I don't know where it disappeared to. Let's see here. There it is. Some dummy is sitting on it. Let's see. No idea what that is. I don't know if it's going to help me any getting it knocked loose. It's really in there. It looks like it's just pressed into the plastic. Oh, there we go. Aha. Okay. Where'd the flashlight go? Nice. There is a Torx. Okie dokie. This is probably one of the more disorganized videos I've done. Well, if you see one that's more disorganized, let me know. What I did was, I got that transmission to come out. It wasn't pretty. Underneath there was this. Okay, here we go. Underneath there, through that basket, was this transmission. There were these two ears, and what they were mounted in here. This little piece of metal like this, and this screw on only one of them. You can't get in there with a screwdriver, so I took the bit off one of my screw sets. I think it was a number 20 Torx. That's a 15 Torx. Won't be any good. And I rotated the transmission around until I could get in there with the bit, like that. Then I stuck this little 1/4" wrench on there and just slowly turned it out. Okay. That's how I got it loose. But I still couldn't get it apart. What I eventually did was I went and got a board and a sledgehammer and pounded that out of there. That thing is really in there. It's pressed in there, I assume, to keep it from leaking. Now, FYI, I'm assuming that you can see this. Hang on. Let me get off my big fat butt. Okay. When I took that out, it had done this. It had tightened this up against there and locked it into place. And I tried to push this down by hand and couldn't. So like a smart ass, I thought I would just knock it down with a hammer. And it took those ears off just quicker than you could say snot. So if you're going to knock that down, you may want to tap on it with a piece of wood or something. And so there you go. There's the whole transmission out of that thing in about 100 little steps. Most of them very annoying. I'm going to take the gearbox apart on mine and see what's in there. That's how you get that out of there. You probably would want to get those parts to be replaced ahead of time. Like that seal, you're going to have to get ahead of time, because it's not going to be any good. Okie dokie. Well, I'm going to take this apart and look around in there and see what I can find and get back to you. Okie dokie. Well, this is probably about as far as you could go in the real world. If you're going to repair this, I believe that General Electric, or whoever builds these things, doesn't sell this any more disassembled than this. And the reason I took this washing machine apart was it quit working. The transmission wouldn't work anymore. It started with the low speed or the gentle cycle quit working, and I ran another 8 years on this regular cycle, which is fine. It should have been a red flag to tell me that something was going on. Anyway, when it finally quit, I took and looked at the thing, and actually the thing is pretty easy to, in the field, replace things. The front door comes down on the thing. You can look online and see how that happens. You use a putty knife or a small screwdriver. I think I pushed a popsicle stick in there and got the front off the thing. It's pretty easy to work on. This is the only part that's kind of a bear. But anyway, I looked at this transmission and it was a couple $100, which is too bad because there's not a couple $100 worth of stuff there. And I think a new, almost identical washing machine that was a little more updated, had a few more features on it, was $350. So I think I had that washing machine 90, maybe 15 or 20 years. So I got my money's worth out of it, I figure. Anyway, I'm just taking this apart to screw around. I was going to take this transmission off, this cover off the top, just to see what's in there. I still don't quite understand how this comes apart, unless it's it looks like it's tapered, and I think it's supposed to lock in place. It probably comes out the other way. The shaft probably comes out this way instead of that way. Like I said, there's a washer and stuff under there. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and take it apart. And like I said, this would be the end of the probably the field repairable part for normal people. If you're just curious what the heck's inside there and don't want to take your own apart, that's fine. I got a hold of this. This is a DeWalt DC-825, what they call a impact driver or impact gun. It uses 1/4-inch bits. Basically, you pull that collar up, and these 1/4-inch bits you can get at the hardware store or home center. And I have really used this thing a lot. And I lucked out and got this one very cheap because it was a box, the bare tool, and a sketchy looking battery. And there's no charger. Well, I've got a number of DeWalt 18-volt tools. This is 18-volt. And so I wasn't really too worried about the battery or the charger. And I lucked out, and the battery wasn't in good shape, but it was covered under warranty. I took it to the local DeWalt center, and the folks there took it in the back, looked at the date code. I asked them if I had a receipt for it. I told them no. It didn't seem to bother them too much, and they fixed me right up. So let's hear it for DeWalt and their service centers. So let's see what's going on inside here. Looks like they might have locked this together with thread locking compound. This, as you can see, this gun is making short work of this thing. Pretty much just ate those screws alive. Oh, again, you wouldn't probably use these monstrous tools to take this stuff apart, but I'm not going to run around and get too excited about this stuff. If you were taking a device or surface like this apart, you definitely wouldn't pry on it with a screwdriver. It's all sealed in there. As you can see, there's the gasket sealer they squashed in there. And if you take it apart with a screwdriver, what's going to happen is you're probably going to jam it in there. This would apply to anything that's mated together. Transmission, a motor housing, a motorcycle, gearbox, anything like that. Anything that's mated together like that, you wouldn't want to pry that apart like that and jam that screwdriver in there. And the reason being, those surfaces are probably machined to fit together with a little bit of sealer to get them to seal up. And by jamming that screwdriver in there, you're going to make a mark in there, and then you're going to break the seal and screw it up. Dude, there is a lot of gooey. Now, there's some really bad and foul-smelling transmission fluid in there. Yeah, that whole thing is roached. That probably shouldn't be that milky color. It's been leaking down in there and screwed it all up. You can see that or not. These transmissions, usually they're dual purpose, and they don't shift gears like you would think. They shift the functions by changing the rotation of the motor. So here you can see that this way, this doesn't engage that gear, but this way it probably does. So that's all that's in there. That's kind of interesting. There's seal. A lot of it is squished into the inner guts of this thing. There's actually a little bead around there that's all sealed on. The transmission itself is not broken. I think what really happened is underneath here there's a clutch and some other mechanisms, and when I took it apart originally it was all rusty that had been running down in there. Man, does that stuff smell foul. Okie dokie. Like I said, there's kind of a little cam in there. It's a really clever mechanism. It's pretty nice. Maybe that is worth $200. There's a lot of parts in there. It probably goes on the top like that. Now it rides back and forth and shakes that. Probably shakes that back and forth, and that gives it the agitation motion on top. Basically that's a cam. Okay, that's all there is to it. And I'll just throw it in the scrap pile. That this big thing is a counterweight for when you spin down. That's kind of clever that they've cast that separately and then they drop that in there. A mess. Well, I guess there's really not too much more to see here. If you have a question or comment, or want to make because this is one of the more disorganized videos, let me know. Again, the purpose of these is to try and help folks out. If you want to subscribe to my channel, go ahead. That'd be great. I've been doing quite a few more videos. Like I said in some of the other videos, people seem to have a pretty positive reaction to these kinds of things. Maybe you can send me some money through PayPal to get some soap for my hands. Anyway, have a good day. Take her easy.